Good morning and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Aranza Zugalan and I'm a member of the Build Up editorial team.
Welcome to Build Up, the European Commission's portal for energy efficiency and renewable energy in buildings. Directly stemming from the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, Build Up is the meeting place for everyone involved in making the European building and construction sector more energy efficient. Every month we focus on a topic that is key to making Europe's buildings as energy efficient as possible. Exploring that, you can find the latest content such as expert talks, webinars, case studies and more. From architects and engineers to academics and policy makers, we've got you covered. Build Up brings together thousands of registered members to reap the benefit of Europe's collective intelligence on all aspects of energy efficiency and renewable energy in buildings. The Build Up portal benefits from the expertise of our ambassadors. Drawn from industry and academia, the ambassadors bridge the gap between EU and national level and help shape our editorial content. Want to promote your work? Build Up disseminates your research, projects and events through a variety of channels. Become a member to exchange knowledge with your peers. You can disseminate tools and resources, share good practices, and consult open source publications. Join the discussion on social media and become part of the Build Up community, or subscribe to our newsletter to receive the latest news. However you participate, the Build Up portal is here to inspire, inform and connect. Build Up, the European portal for energy efficiency and renewable energy in buildings. Join the community for opportunities and updates.
It is a pleasure for Build Up to host today's webinar entitled Unlocking Operation Rating Schemes, the Synergetic Added Value of Smart Living EPC and Chronicle, brought to you by Smart Living EPC, Chronicle and Build Up. The webinar will explore the intricacies of operational rating schemes and the methodologies of the Smart Living EPC and Chronicle projects. Today's agenda will begin with a presentation of the challenges in building environment and operational rating schemes from Sofia Bassano, EU Project and Financial Officer at RIVA. Following Sofia, we will hear from Ulrike Nuschler, Senior Project Advisor, Life Energy Plus Life Climate at CINEA, who will present Horizon 2020 to Life CET, the building topics in transition. We will then move to our keynote speaker of the day, Andrei Vladimir Litiu, Executive Director at EPV Center, and Gust Kosovics, Director Technical Communication at EUBAC. Andrei and Gust will discuss measuring building performance as a stepping stone towards operational rating. The final part of today's agenda will focus on the projects that brought you the webinar today, namely Smart Living EPC, of which an overview will be presented by Paris Fokaides, Senior Researcher at Frederick Research Center, and Chronicle, presented by Angelina Katsifaraki, Project Manager at Hypertech. We will round the webinar with a short Q&A session moderated by Build Up. We invite you and encourage the audience to send us questions through the GoToWebinar platform that can be answered during the Q&A session. Please specify if your questions is for a specific speaker or if it's for all the speakers to answer. You will be able to find the webinar recording on the Build Up portal and our YouTube channel in the coming days, together with the presentation slides. And now, without further hesitation, we will move directly to our first speakers of today, Sofia Bassano, EU Project and Financial Officer at RIVA. Sofia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and good morning all, and welcome to this webinar. I am Sofia Bazzano and I work as EU Project Officer at RIVA. RIVA is the Federation of European Heating, Ventilation and Air Conditioning Association. We are based in Brussels, and RIVA is part of the Smart Living EPC Consortium, a project that started in July 2022, and it's a sister project of Chronicle. Oops, sorry. Okay, today we are here to explore the challenges in the building environment when implementing operational rating schemes and see how SmartLivingEPC and Chronicle are working together to overcome these challenges. As a very general introduction, we have identified 5 main challenges related to this topic, which are data availability, which concern the scarcity and interconsistency of building performance data, the heterogeneous building stock, which means that the diverse nature of building in terms of type, age, and energy system. Then the interoperability, which refers to the difficulty in integrating diverse data and source and system. And of course, the behavioral factor, because the occupant of a building can significantly influence the building performance. And last but not least, the regulatory and policy barriers that could create even more challenges and barriers sometimes when talking about operational rating schemes. So, sorry. So SmartLivingEPC and Chronicle work together to overcome these challenges, and they have a common objective, which is to enhance the measured and operational performance of building through comprehensive operational rating schemes. I have left you here the website of both projects, but of course then my colleagues Paris from SmartLivingEPC and Angelina from Chronicle will brief you and will guide you into the more technical aspects of these 2 projects, as well as the methodology implemented. So we are here today to explore the synergetic added value that these 2 projects could bring, which are the comprehensive data, as well as the enhanced data quality, the customized assessments, and the real-time insight that these 2 projects could bring combined. I don't want to steal any other time to the other speakers, and I want to thank you again on behalf of Riva for joining this webinar, and I will leave the floor to the next speaker, which is Mrs. Nuscheller Ulrike from CINEA. Thank you very much.
So Sophia, many thanks for that introduction. I guess you hear me and you see me. So yes, indeed, I'm Ulrike Nuscheller. I work as a senior project advisor at CINEA. CINEA, for those who don't know it, is the European Executive Agency for Climate, Infrastructure, Environment. Unfortunately, we miss the word energy in the title. But we also called, our nickname is the Green Deal Agency, because we're really in charge of implementing most of the programs that that are there for clean energy transition, sustainable energy, and green issues. So, but I don't have a lot of time, so I want to go into medias res. So I know that there's a bit of a time, so it doesn't work. I press again. Can you change the slide? Yeah.
Try clicking once and then it should work.
Say again?
Can you click one time on the screen first and then it should work?
Ah, okay, that's why. Okay. Ah, voila. That was too much. So this is my first slide. And since this is an event that focuses on projects funded under the Horizon program, and not live, I want to start with this overview slide that displays the EPC projects that have been funded under Horizon 2020 and now Horizon Europe since 2018. And of course, these projects are of different natures. You see that we have innovation action and coordination support actions, and those coordination and support actions are actually those whose tradition we have taken up within LIFE, but I explain that later. I already presented this slide last year at the final conference of the projects USERT and Extendo, but today, as Sophia already said, we focus on the findings of the projects Smart Living, EPC, and Chronicle. So you see those highlighted in yellow. So I don't need to present those projects because the project coordinators will present them. But just, I mean, to sum up that those projects make use of building information modeling and dynamic data in order to improve also the accuracy of the EPCs, and that responds to a super important challenge. Even more if in the end, after the EPBD recast, we will end up with minimum energy performance standards that are linked to EPCs, and that will then decide on whether people have to renovate their buildings or not. So the accuracy of EPCs has always been important, but gets a completely new importance now with these new policy developments. So again, I have to probably click here. Voila. And this overview slide should give you an overview of how the building topics have evolved over time, and how the thematic areas have evolved over the years, starting from age 2020. So you see this on the top, but then how we are going to how we are addressing them now also on the live, because I'm here to also promote the live program and the live calls. And you see the different strands on thematic areas around the core pillars that are deep renovation, policy instruments, and there notably EPCs, smartness and smart services, and finally buildings data. You also see quite a degree of continuity, even if of course the topics on the horizon and now on the Horizon Europe had been and are more technological, while on the live we focus clearly on policy design and policy implementation and market uptake. We can also see that we made an attempt finally in this live set called 2023 to be broader and to cover as much as we can different areas and to allow for more flexibility and more ideas, but I come to this back in a minute. So this time it worked. So here you see a project landscape in which we try to map a bit the projects that we have on the live set. On the left side, you see the deep renovation. This is more the classical projects that would focus on prefabrication and industrialization of renovation. Then you see the blue bubble. That's maybe the one that is most relevant for you because it focuses on the instruments and in there notably on EPCs and building renovation passports. You see already how this blue bubble overlaps with the green one, which is the smartness bubble, because indeed most of these projects don't only have an EPC dimension, but also smart readiness indicator dimension. And I'm sure this comes up today again, and it will come up in the future again. I'm going to quickly let you know about the projects that are just about to start, but which have an influence on the EPC cluster as well. So the green bubble is the one where we have the SRI, the Smart Readiness Indicator project, so trying to support the implementation of the SRI. And also for that, we have a clustering activity that's being managed by my colleague Sylvain. And well, we will see how the future looks for the EPC cluster. And on the right part, you have the smart services. We only have 2 projects for the moment on the live, but it has quite a big tradition since 2018. Those smart services projects focus on new innovative services that bundle energy efficiency and other business cases and then make use of smart technology. And in the very bottom, you also see the EU Building Stock Observatory that has been launched, and there's going to be the repository for buildings data, so absolutely relevant for EPC, and it will also host EPC data. So this is the slide I already announced because we wanted to promote to you those projects that are kicking off this autumn, most of them in October, some of them in November. You might find your own projects listed there. These projects have been selected under different topics. The first one, EPBD-wise, has been selected under the topic policy, which is a bit broader, but it's about implementing horizontal policy issues and instruments. It's very strongly linked to the concerted action for the implementation of the EPBD. and it involves EuroAce or Renovate Europe respectively. So it's a very broad, very big EPBD implementation action. So I would be very happy if you linked up with them and the coordinators, Technical University of Vienna. And then you have tunes, Smarter, EPC, and IPB. I don't want to go into details of this, just to maybe mention Smarter EPC, because that will be, I don't know how to frame it, but it will be supporting the clustering activities for EPCs and SRI in the future. Maybe André wants to comment on this later on. And then we have One-Click Reno and Cosmo Reno, which have been selected under the topic Deep Reno, which are indeed more for developing and integrating BRPs, but also to implement industrialized renovation actions. So now coming into the live program, and this is also one of the aims why I'm here, because I still want to promote the ongoing call that is still open. But just a background slide on what LIFE is. So I've been working in Age 2020. Now I'm working in LIFE-SET, LIFE-SET being Live Clean Energy Transition. Clean Energy Transition is a LIFE sub-program, but it's very different in many respects from other LIFE programs. So it really focuses on energy. It's a policy implementation and market uptake program. It's very much like in the tradition of Age 2020 energy efficiency, only that we don't have this technological dimension on, which does not mean that we cannot fund any technologies and equipment, but we don't do real demonstration of technologies under LIFE-SET. We have a budget of almost 1 billion for 21 and 27 until 27 for this program period. And now coming to the call that I mentioned already. So you see the deadline is 16th of November. There's a bit of time, but there's not a lot of time. Now see, there's so much light coming in. We have 100 million available for that call. We have a co-funding rate of 95%, which is also much more than other LIFE programs usually grant. We're policy and market needs driven. That's what I just explained. And for most of the topic, not for all, but for most of the topic, and probably for those that are most interesting for you, we need a minimum of 3 eligible entities from 3 different eligible countries. And the application goes like you would do it for Horizon, so through the funding and tender opportunities portal. The topic that we imagine would be most relevant for you is the topic Veterano, and that is really an advantage of LIFE, that you have these nice acronyms that are much more easier. It's easier to remember than these strange numbers that you have on the Horizon. So one more reason to apply for LIFE. And under this Veterano, so the ultimate goal is to make renovation more attractive, to make it easier, to make it smarter and more data-driven. We have 3 scopes. We have one scope A, that is to facilitate large-scale deep renovation, which means creating new business models to better supply and coordinate supply and demand, so meaning also to coordinate the actors in the supply chain. It's about using and promoting and developing good methodologies for renovation passports, and to create replicable models that can be used for other renovation sites. Then there's a scope B, which is about streamlining the regulatory and administrative framework for renovation, meaning adapting legal frameworks and support schemes and improve governance. Note that this tackles mainly the local and regional area, and not support to policy implementation at member states level, because that would be addressed under the topic policy. I'm going to talk about this in a second. Then the third scope should be very interesting for you. It's focusing on data. So better building energy data and services. And the aim is to improve the availability, quality, and accuracy of data, but it also has a strong focus on EPCs. So please have a look if you're working on EPCs. It certainly provides an interesting opportunity for you. It's very strongly linked also to the market valuation of buildings. This is already the core. Just to tell you that there other topics, building-related topics as well, that are still open. The one that I just mentioned is the policy topic, and there's a scope C, which is specifically to provide support to member states authorities for the implementation of the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. So it's the same topic that I mentioned for this project EPBD-WISE that just kicks off. So it's not local, regional. It's really the focus is on member states, governments, and public authorities. But we have also topics open, and these are then also mono-country for skills. So to tackle the need for skilled workforce in the area of buildings, we have the so-called OSS, or one-stop shops that address integrated renovation services, covering the whole supply chain and also the customer journey. And that is this year open for private and public actors and also SMEs. And then finally, that you find here is the PDA, the project development assistance that mobilizes, or that aims to mobilize public investment, and that's about concrete project pipelines. But you have there more information on the SINEA website, and we have plenty of material from the info day where you can find guidance and videos on all the topics, and really topic specific. So if you are interested in this, please go back to the website and watch the videos. And that was it. So maybe you have questions to me later on, but otherwise I would hand over to the keynote session to Andre and Gus, if I pronounce that correctly, and I would sneak off then. Thanks a lot.
Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. Sorry for the slight hiccup. I hope I'm back for good now. Sorry for the hiccup. I was just saying that I have some camera issues, so I put on a nice shirt, but you will not be able to see that. So I'll get straight to the point. First of all, thank you for the invitation, and thank you, Sophia, for having set the scene, and Ulrike for having presented this, in a way, past, present, and future in a nutshell about the EU-funded activities when it comes to the building performance related topics. I will go in a bit more depth, touching in a bit more detail also on the next-gen EPC cluster that Ulrike referred to, and also at the same time taking the scene that Sophia has very well put for us for this webinar, linking to the EPBD and also to the set of EPBD standards. I'm wearing the EPB Center hat on today in my role as Executive Director, and giving this presentation on behalf of the user project, which has closed this year, and it's among the first projects from the next-gen EPC cluster family of projects, from which I will also show you some very to-the-point results to support, of course, the flow of my presentation. You've already seen this on Ulrike's slide. It's just that here you see it with logos from the project. So this is the so-called next-gen EPC cluster. For those of you that have already joined our joint events, this is not necessarily something new. I just want to stress that for the topic of measuring building performance and having this evolution towards operational rating, there is already work that has been done. So I think Smart Living EPC and Chronicle are in a very fortunate position to have additional insights and lessons learned from these projects that have either closed or are more advanced. And just as a note, again, as Ulrike already said, bear in mind that the first project that you see on the left that started in 2019, they were written in 2018. So many things have happened since that. We all know we have an ongoing EPBD revision. And also when it comes to the set of EPB standards, there is a systematic review ongoing. As a cluster, I just want to say thank you to all the projects that agreed unanimously without any effort to take part, and for our colleagues at CINEA in all teams that are managing now the Horizon Europe and Live projects for having endorsed and supported us to the extent that was possible. This is just to show that we formalized our collaboration, and this is a Horizon results booster that we tapped into to have a common visual identity and yeah, be more visible as a cluster. When it comes to building performance measuring and then evolving to operational rating, we have organized this event. It was last year. Behind this image, you have the link to the outcomes of that event, a recording, slide deck, so you can get familiarized with what the sister projects in the next gen EPC cluster are doing or have done with regards to operational rating. And this is something also that Smart Living EPC and Chronicle colleagues could tap into when they are implementing the next steps of their project with regard to this topic, of course. Now I'll just put my finger on how things have evolved. So I will not show you articles from EPBD or specific standards from the set of EPB standards, which is meant to support the implementation of the EPBD. I'll just give this sort of overview evolution. So this is what has happened since 2002, when the first EPBD came into force. So we are roughly 20 years later. So we have seen this evolution from asset rating, which is just a calculated version of building performance, to measured performance, and further to operational rating. And you can see it goes from the top to the bottom, and then the images from the left to the right. And each of these steps, they have a meaning and are still relevant from here onwards. It's not that one is replacing the other. They should work in synchronicity. But this is how things have evolved throughout the years. If you ask yourselves why has this evolution taken place, well, this is something that is generic for our society at large. We want to control what's happening in our lives, in our businesses, and this is something that is happening in the building performance business as well. So we want to measure, to know better, and then to improve. And this is the point that I want to make, that in asset rating, although there are a consistent benchmarking advantage, and this is the main scope that was in the initial EPBD with energy performance certificate, so to give more value to the buildings that have a higher performance. Of course, that stops there, and it doesn't necessarily mean that that building will actually behave in real life as it was intended, because things depend a lot when it comes to performance, be it energy, environment, or indoor environmental quality. It depends on a few variables like occupant behavior, the way the systems are working in the building, and of course the climatic variations. That's why we measure. That's why we do follow-ups. And then ultimately, the last point that we are arriving now, thanks to all these projects that are pushing things to be advanced in this direction, is that buildings are complex. It doesn't mean that we need to simplify them too much, because then what do? We miss a lot of opportunities when it comes to continuously improving building performance. Again, be it energy, environment, indoor environmental quality, even smartness, just to mention a few. And I use this figure. It's already from 2012, but it's still accurate today in many countries, that you can see the higher the performance of a building is, the more the estimations from the asset rating are less than the actual performance the building will have, and then the poorer the performance of the building is, the more exaggerated in the other way the asset rating is. You would assume the building will consume an enormous amount of energy, when in fact the actual consumption is less. So that's where operational rating comes in, and it can provide both this benchmarking, but also a clear impression of the actual performance of the building. And we are now in a point where a lot of funding will be triggered to renovate the entire building stock. Think about the Green Deal, the renovation wave, REPowerEU, and all that. So I think it's about time to make some clear decisions how this operational rating will play a role to ensure that buildings actually deliver and perform in reality. Here, I just answered the why question. So why would we do operational rating? And I looked in terms of timeframes first. So you can see some added value if you look at short term, like hours and days. I will not read the information from the slide. You can check it in the follow-up material. Then you can go to weeks level with fault detection and diagnosis. Longer term predictions, so to ensure that everything is operating well in the building, and then very long term predictions. And there I want to touch upon the stakeholders. So what would be the benefits for certain stakeholders? And you can see three stakeholder categories that are, at least in my opinion, the most relevant. So the building owners, the policymakers, and those that provide services that guarantee performance for buildings. So these would be the ones that would stand to benefit most. And of course, overall, we would reach our energy and climate goals much easier if we are sure that building will operate as they are intended to. Just a quick mention from user project. Bear in mind, as I said, this is a project that already closed, so this is not necessarily up-to-date information, but just to have a flavor. So currently, out of the 11 countries that we covered in user project, almost half of them already had an assessment procedure for measured performance. So this means that it wouldn't be something completely novel. There is already experience gained in this regard, also at national level. And there is this big group of projects, both on EPCs, SRI, and all the tools around them that will support member states to implement, of course, the upcoming EPBD recast. And there will be a standard in the set of EPB standards emerging, but of course, my colleagues in SmartLivingEPC and CHRONICLE, Paris and Angelina will give you more details about that. I just want to remind you that EPCs are at the center. It doesn't mean that they are the center of the world, but everything is linked to them, and so will be operational rating when things will come in practice. And you can see all the other policy instruments. I'm very fond of this slide because it has a nice overview of EPBD policy instruments and how they link to each other. And we are now in the EPBD revision process, so the trialogues have started before the summer break. They are continuing now, and we should have an adopted EPBD revision. And I think member states would benefit a lot from all the work that has been done in the Next Gen EPC cluster and the work that will still be continued by SmartLivingEPC CHRONICLE and also the other projects that Ulrike kindly put on the map for us to have an overview what to follow in the upcoming period. That would be all from my side. Thank you very much for your attention. If we are not already connected, let's connect on social media and further explore synergies. Thank you very much again. And I pass the floor now to my colleague Gust at EUBAC to share the opinion of the industry. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and thank you. For some reason, seems that my camera is not working, so I'll turn it off if it doesn't come up. Yeah, sorry for that. I will continue without the camera then. Thank you, Andrei, and the previous speakers. I'm Gust Kosovic, the Director of Technical Communication at EUBAC, and today I will talk a little bit more about measuring performance as a stepping stone towards operational rating from our perspective, from the industry's perspective and tell you a little bit about how we see what policy instruments can be used in the future to further the measuring of performance. So a few words about our association, EUBAC, the European Building Automation and Control Association. We are the voice of manufacturers of the building automation and control systems in Europe. And we represent the companies that you can see in this slide. But to take you back a little bit and to begin, I'd like to take a minute to define very basic things. So we are on the same page when we talk about these things and say what we mean when we're talking about measuring building performance. So with building performance, we can understand the overall effectiveness of a building in terms of energy efficiency, indoor environmental quality, and overall sustainability in different aspects. So we can take different parameters and measure these. It is a measure of how well a building performs in its intended functions, whatever these functions might be. Some examples could be to provide comfort, to provide productivity, to provide shelter to people, for example. Operational ratings, therefore, would be a system for assessing and rating operational performance of a building. It is usually based on such parameters as an actual energy consumption, indoor air and environmental quality parameters, water consumption, and other performance metrics. We will hear later a little bit more in detail about how Smart Living EPC and Chronicle projects can use data collected by monitoring and control. But I would like to introduce you both to the overall benefits of using such systems as building automation and control systems in buildings, and our perspective on how this can feed into the performance ratings, as well as give our perspective on what can be done at the EU policy level. So first, beyond we talk about measuring and performance, the monitoring and control using BACS can deliver a host of other benefits to the building owners and users, such as reducing energy and CO2 consumption, improving health and comfort, reducing costs, and helping tackle energy poverty. For operational ratings specifically, we can collect data on a variety of building performance metrics, such as energy consumption and generation, indoor air quality, and occupant comfort. We can also identify opportunities for improvement by analyzing data of building performance. These systems can help provide information on how to reduce energy consumption and save money ultimately. Additionally, BACS can track progress over different technical building systems over time, which can help to identify trends and make informed decisions of necessary upgrades in the building. And of course, fundamentally, BACS automated technical building systems, such as HVAC systems, lighting, and security. The automation can therefore deconflict with different systems and account for the needs of tenants and improve the performance once again. Overall, as well as providing valuable information to any operational rating scheme, BACS plays a significant role in improving the performance of buildings. Then I would like to also turn to some of the policy discussion that we are currently looking at. Andre already mentioned the revision of Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, which is currently ongoing. Our industry has been very focused on this because we can see several areas where reviewing some elements of this can enhance the measuring and provide the necessary data for operational ratings of the buildings. I will go into a little more detail on these separate aspects in the next slides, but just to list the three that we think are key are extending the BACS requirement scope, introducing a mandatory smart readiness indicator, and for the first time at the European level, requiring the monitoring and control of indoor environmental quality in certain buildings. So first, regarding the requirements for BACS, we currently, after the previous revision of the EPBD in 2018, first requirements were introduced already in larger non-residential buildings with effective rated output of above to 190 kilowatts. And these requirements will apply to all buildings after 2024 for continuously monitoring, logging, and analyzing, allowing for adjusting energy use, benchmarking, and interoperability of the different technical building systems. What we are currently seeing in the trilogues, in which we are very much supporting, is the extension of scope of these requirements. So the idea is to extend these scopes to smaller non-residential buildings of about 70 kilowatts from 2029, and also introducing these requirements to new residential and residential undergoing major renovation above 70 kilowatts as well. As I said, these still are being discussed, but we are very much hoping that these requirements are going to be extended because they will be able to feed in any operational rating of buildings. And of course, as said, provide all of the benefits discussed before. The second big policy aspect that we focused on and we think has a big potential in improving building operational performance is, of course, smart readiness indicator. In itself is a key tool to measure performance, and it also raises awareness amongst building owners of smartness in buildings. Currently, it is only being tested, as you might know, by some member states. It was introduced as a sort of an experimental scheme following the previous EPBD. Nevertheless, it is currently under the discussion to require it in larger non-residential buildings. From sometime in the future, we hope from 2025, but it's looking now in the discussions that it might be introduced as a mandatory requirement from 2027. With the increased electrification of the energy system, more flexibility and enabling buildings for demand response we think is necessary. A mandatory SRI would motivate the implementation of smart technologies such as BACs. And smartness is also crucial for achieving NZ and Z building efficiency, which is going to be required by the EPBD. And finally, smart ready devices can provide indoor environmental quality monitoring and reporting. So in our view, it would make absolute practical sense to link the smart readiness indicator with the application and the deadline for the implementation of building automation control systems, because back capabilities could facilitate the easier reporting of the smart readiness indicator requirements, and it also could overlap with the compliance checks and ease the administrative burden on implementing both of these requirements at the member state level. The final point is on indoor environmental quality requirements. As mentioned, we are for the first time currently looking at the possibility of such requirement at the European level. As we all spend most of our time indoors, living and working, indoor environmental quality can deliver substantial benefits such as improved cognitive functions and reduced health issues and costs for building occupants and users. We are happy to see that for the first time legislators are recognizing these benefits and proposing certain requirements. The most requirements we currently see came from the European Parliament, requiring the monitoring and control of certain indoor environmental quality parameters in certain buildings. We see support also on the Commission side for some requirements in at least new build and buildings undergoing major renovation. So we hope all co-legislators will be able to get on board this. So we have even more information coming from the buildings that can also feed into building operational rating later and improve overall performance of buildings. So that is it from me. Oh, sorry about that. I ran too fast. That is it from me. As I said, take a look a little bit more at UBAC, to take a look at what we do. We are very happy to get in touch with you if you'd like. Connect us with us on social media if you haven't yet. And I will give floor to the next speaker then. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Associate Professor Paris Fogaris from Frederick University, also Senior Researcher at Frederick Research Center. I am here under my capacity as a scientific and technical manager of SmartLivingEPC to present our project, which was initiated last summer in July 22, and to discuss a bit about the activities which are foreseen in SmartLivingEPC concerning operational rating. The structure of my presentation, I will present some information about the SmartLivingEPC project, which is envisioned to change the way we understand EPCs in Europe and to introduce all the novel elements that have been delivered by the research community in the Commission in European Union the past few years. And of course, I will also discuss on the contribution of our project towards enhancing the operational rating of buildings. Now, what concerns our project, as said, the kickoff date was July 22. It was funded under the Cluster 5 projects of 21. It was the fourth destination, and the call was 1-1. And it's an innovation action. And the countries participating in the project are shown in this slide. We have a good geographical coverage across Europe with many industrial partners. We also have 3 main research centers which contribute, as well as non-profit organizations, standardization bodies, associations, non-profit SMEs, and 1 university. The network of SmartLivingEPC has also participated in the past in similar initiatives and has a background of implementing effectively the project. Now, the stepping stone for SmartLivingEPC are the needs and challenges that we can see in this slide. So we do recognize the fact that despite the fact that we have many different types of assessment for the sustainability and the energy performance of buildings, these are not reflected in the EPC schemes. And there should be an effort to enrich the information that we include in EPCs. Towards this direction, we discuss about the need to integrate thermal comfort parameters, as well as the life cycle approach, the whole building life cycle approach, to have this information integrated into the EPC. At the same time, the APBD has introduced a new type of assessment of buildings concerning their intelligence, the SRI, and we see necessity of integrating this as well in EPCs. We also have the technical audits of building technical systems. This is foreseen since the first version of the EPBD in 2002. We have a lot of information in that field as building assessors, but this information is not considered for the EPCs, and especially for the case of the operational EPCs, this is an information that needs to be considered. Based also on the fact that SmartLivingEPC aims to consider the developments in the field of Industry 4.0 and digitalization of the built environment, we also discuss about integrating further elements of digitization in our assessment, such as the fact that we are a beam-centered approach. We have a beam-centered approach, that is, we retrieve the information for the energy assessment of the building from beam facts, from beam literacy, as well as the fact that we want to adapt the EPC practices with BLs, that is, to find the ways that we increase the compatibility of EPC documents and practices with BBLs. Last but not least is the neighborhood scale. So we do have the approach of assessing units. We, though, still did not discuss about the case where we could assess building blocks. So never assess on a neighborhood scale. So in SmartLivingEPC, we have specific activities in which we will open up this discussion, and we will also try to provide some solutions for assessing buildings on a neighborhood scale. Now, the vision of SmartLivingEPC is shown in this slide. So we aim to introduce those parameters which will bring EPCs closer to the Industry 4.0 practices, as well as they will allow the integration of beam literacy, smart assessment, and other similar practices in the conditions that we have for EPCs. Also, in our vision, we aim to integrate LCA as an integral aspect of the energy performance certification of buildings. And we also aim to promote the information that is retrieved by building technical audits of building technical systems into the energy assessment of the building. And of course, we aim to do that in two levels, in the level of the asset rating and the operational rating, as well as in the level of building unit and building complex. So we envision as well to deliver a complex EPC scheme out of SmartLivingEPC. The objectives of the project are shown in this slide. We want to develop a more reliable, cost-effective assessment scheme, which will provide enriched information and will cover much more aspects which are related to the energy performance of buildings, both at the design stage as well as at the operational stage. And of course, we want to include the aspect of automation and control of building technical systems through the SRI scheme and align and overlay the information that is found from EPC and SRI within our scheme. We also aim to promote the levels scheme, which concerns the LCA of buildings, and we will exploit practices that are discussed and delivered in levels within our new certification scheme. And all that, we do it by considering the necessity of integrating digital tools and considering the developments in the field of digitization of the assessment of the built environment. Now, in this slide, we see an infographic which shows the entire approach that we have in the SmartLivingEPC. You see in the lower part of the infographic that we do consider both asset and dynamic parameters. We also consider the building level and the neighborhood level, with those aspects in the neighborhood level that are considered, such as, for example, energy communities, smart grids, microgrids, electric vehicle, lighting, so services that are found in a neighborhood scale, and we discuss about their assessment and how this can be integrated towards assessing on a complex scale. And of course, the common information exchange model that we will develop will consider both information and data required for the operational rating, as well as for the asset rating of the building. We aim to develop a certificate, a tool that will be compatible to digital building logbooks. And of course, for the operational aspects, we do have many elements of digital twins in our approach. Then, of course, this information will be delivered to the user, the stakeholders, the assessors in a friendly, user-friendly manner in SmartLivingEPC platform, with the purpose to allow the further implementation and usage of the tools to be delivered by SmartLivingEPC. We don't need to say that all our approach is based on European standards. So we have analyzed thoroughly the 52,000 standard series and all the other EPD standards in order to define the ways and the methods and the techniques that we're using for the assessment of buildings. We have the expected outcomes as well as expected impact in the next two slides. Of course, we want to have better certificates, more user-friendly, with enhanced information, exploiting the tools and practices that we have in the Industry 4.0 area, and making them more reliable and providing also operational information on the building on a more regular timescale. So we want to improve the position of the EPC certificates in the European area, as well as we want to have a significant impact on different aspects. That is for a more effective assessment of the building stock, which will deliver more precise information, which will also allow for the improvement of the energy performance of buildings in a more holistic manner. Now, the project has also 9 demo sites, which are located in 4 countries, in Greece, Cyprus, Estonia, and Spain. These are different types of pilots, and of course, we have buildings of mixed use, buildings of family houses, private flats, town halls, school buildings, sports centers. So we will implement the methodology that we will deliver from SmartLivingEPC and our tools to 9 demo sites across Europe. Then, of course, this is the structure of the project. I will not further elaborate this. Now, what concerns the operational rating, SmartLivingEPC places a lot of emphasis on the operational rating. Based on our experience from previous projects, we do understand that the operational rating, despite the fact that it delivers an energy rating for a building, has a significantly different approach concerning compared to the asset rating. So for the operational rating, we need to have measurements, we need to analyze the measurements, we need to validate the measurements, and of course, the information that we measure, the data that we receive, is not necessarily related to the building shell, which is one of the main aspects that we consider in the case of asset rating. To this end, in SmartLivingEPC, we have identified 3 areas in which the operational rating can be further expanded. So we have, of course, the energy area in which we can measure, we should measure all the energy-related values, and of course, we have another 2 fields. The first one is the life cycle costing assessment of the building, discussing on the actual performance of the building and on potential scenarios and how we monetize these scenarios using LCC practices. So we will deliver, and we are delivering a comprehensive methodology in which these aspects will be included in the rating. And of course, the other aspect is the indoor environmental quality and the thermal comfort. So we do exploit the outcomes of level scheme in order to integrate them in an operational manner in our new scheme, which will also cover the operational aspects. Of course, we recognize the fact that we do have standards that cover all these topics, so we do exploit existing standards for addressing these topics. And of course, we aim to do that by exploiting the state-of-the-art approaches in the field of digitalization, digital twin, smart sensors, IoT. So we have many elements in the project that align the operational rating with the required hardware and how this should be managed and considered. Of course, our approach is let's say, included in many tasks and work packages of the project. One of the main targets of the project is to deliver a comprehensive operational rating methodology, which will include all the aspects that we have discussed about before, and a novel certification scale that will not just include the energy aspects, but also other aspects that are related to the building. So in SmartLivingEPC, we recognize that the rationale of sustainability assessment schemes of buildings in which many parameters are assessed is also the direction for the EPCs, and we aim to merge information which is not only related strictly to energy consumption, but also to other energy-related aspects into the rating of the building. And this will be done in a weighted manner, and depending on the conditions of the building, on the geographical area, and other aspects that we are currently assessing and investigating. Last but not least, our project will support the standardization activities that have been initiated by previous Horizon projects. We will actively participate in the working group 5 of Technical Committee 371, an initiative which was started from D3PC and other next-gen EPC cluster project. And in this working group, we focus on the development of the operational principles for the assessing the operational rating of buildings. And we also organize a workshop in 2 weeks from now in which the activities of the D3PC for this new standard will be handed over to SmartLivingEPC and Chronicle. All 3 projects will work closely together towards supporting the standardization society to develop and deliver a new standard that will allow the operation of rating buildings. I would like to thank you for your time, and of course, I believe we'll have later time for questions. Thank you.
Okay, hi, can you hear me? I assume yes.
Yes, we do.
Thank you. So hi, everyone. Thank you, Pari, for this great presentation. So I am Angelina Kachefaraki. I am working as a project manager at Hypertech Energy Labs, and I am also working in Chronicle. So without further ado, sorry, let me check. Yeah, it works. So just a quick introduction to Chronicle. So similarly with Smart Living EPC, Chronicle is an EU project involving 18 partners from different EU countries. And our demonstrations will expand to 5 full-scale pilots, again, all over Europe. I will not go into much detail on these details details of the project, just to focus a little bit more on the technical aspects. So just present Chronicle in a nutshell. Chronicle on its basis has what we call Chronicle Common Data Environment. The friendly term is CD, which I will use now from now on in this presentation, because Common Data Environment is a mouthful. And this is a component lying on the basis of the project in order to manage, store and distribute data to all Chronicle tools. It is fed with IoT information and static data extracted from BIM files for the buildings involved. And it also feeds information to the Chronicle Digital Twin framework, which is also the core component for all the Chronicle system. So what's the deal with the Digital Twin framework? As its name implies, it actually models, it's a powerful simulation tool. It models the building operation and the individual system operation. And it feeds all the other Chronicle tools with data in order to perform different operations. So the Chronicle toolkit addresses many stakeholders, including engineers and experts in the construction sector, facility managers, ESCOs, tenants, owners, and other stakeholders investing into buildings, as well as public authorities, and considers a lot of different services and use cases, expanding from sustainable building design and renovation to real-time operation and maintenance activities. It also includes better planning and accurate solution sizing through accurate LCA and LCC analysis of the building, and of course rating and recommendation included for different stakeholders. So we have different level of detail for different stakeholders. I will go into more detail on that later on in my simulation, in my presentation, excuse me. And it also considers use cases for financial and investment de-risking, so financial analysis of different investment and innovation schemes, and supports public authorities through mainly the DBL, Digital Building Logbook tool, to be designed and delivered within Chronicle. So as the digital twin of the of Chronicle is let's say a two pillar component. It has a physics-based component that is a traditional building simulation mechanism, a very powerful one, and a data-driven component. So we'll focus a little bit on the data-driven component, because it actually the problem so far with simulation engines is that they consider occupants as let's say a passive element. They use usage and different profiling of the users as a binary input, and they don't really take into account the unexpected behavior of real humans, and that leads to a huge gap between simulated performance and actual performance. And this is the exact problem that the data-driven digital twin aims to cover. So there are different aspects that the digital twin considers, such as creating virtual replicas of real loads and profiles and schedules trained on real data, on real life data through an IoT system. It includes ETL tools to allow the co-simulation with the physics-based component. It allows, it provides services for performance enhancement that can be implemented in various energy-related schemes for DR and other things. But to be consistent with the scope of the webinar we are currently attending, I will mainly focus on the performance monitoring and all the assessment services offered by the data-driven digital twin. So the basic things we will be focusing within Chronicle is the dynamic EPC generation, the evolution of the SRI rating, and the comfort and generally human-centric KPIs within this performance assessment. So just to look a bit closer into the rating aspects. So as has been mentioned in the previous presentations, I was very happy to see that I am faithful to the scope of this webinar. The SRI was discussed a lot, so the smart readiness indicator, rating of the buildings. So at the moment, this is a static rating, which actually requires a very detailed auditing on site. What we are trying to do within Chronicle is, on one hand, to automate this process, so create a BIM to SRI mechanism, and in order to make it actually representative of the usage of the building, to readjust the weights of the SRI through real life measurements of energy consumption for different loads. Then regarding the EPC, as mentioned earlier, we are trying through the digital twin to create a more accurate performance rating by coupling the asset and the operational rating through the digital twin mechanism. What happens with rating beyond energy? We are considering different subcategories of indicators within Chronicle. We consider comfort. So at the moment, we are working towards thermal, visual, and acoustic comfort KPIs to be included in this human-centric rating. We are also considering indoor air quality rating based on actual measurements on site. Then well-being and social KPIs are taken into account, which are evolved from qualitative to actual quantitative indicators based either on data streams from the pilot sites or information extracted from the BIMs used for the Chronicle demonstrations. And then we are also taking into account the financial aspect as well as the sustainability KPIs. So just to go a bit deeper on how data is collected within the Chronicle framework, there is a combined, let's say, notion of BIM infused with different sensors on site. And we are using a hybrid approach of static and dynamic information collection. So this video pretty much presents these aspects. So we are extracting the building geometry and dedicated information regarding insulation and glazing materials, some equipment and PV on site. And then there are dynamic information of individual loads in and outside the building, including EV charging, indoor air quality, total energy metering, PV and other renewable production. We are also measuring ambient conditions, status of the heating and cooling devices on site, occupancy, and we are also collecting data streams of weather information from local weather stations in order to collect all the necessary information to proceed with accurate simulations. And how is all this information handled within Chronicle? As mentioned earlier, the basis is the CD, the Common Data Environment, which is a complex system which allows the injection of information from multiple sources through a message broker scheme fed into the information layer of the system, and this information can be passed to other components through RESTful APIs designed specifically for the project. Then, to ensure security, there is an authentication authorization layer designed based on key clock. And what happens within let's say, the data processing layer of the CD, we have two major sublayers, the batch and the speed sublayers, that are responsible for the efficient operation of the component as well as the data pre-processing. The component also handles the data repository for storing and distributing this information. And there is a, let's say, a BIM processing component that is enhanced with a BIM viewer based on the Unity WebGL viewer, which is actually used to promote one of the UIs delivered in Chronicle, and that will use as a powerful tool for the facility managers. It is a little bit ironic that I won't have a demo for the actual operational rating, but I will present a short demo of this tool, as this was the most mature solution we had so far to present. So this is based on this BIM viewer. We call it CrowView FM. So this is the facility manager tool. It allows a 3D visualization of one of the buildings. This is actually one of the test beds used in Chronicle, a residential building. You see, you can activate or deactivate different floors and levels of the building, select specific sensors, and visualize their evolution through time. You can also compare it with the forecasted performance as it is through an RC model of the building, and also see energy consumption and forecasted power demand of specific devices within the building. So this visualization will be enhanced with specific indicators on performance. At the moment, it works as a monitoring tool for the performance assessment and monitoring of the building, mainly focused for facility managers. So before closing, I would like to also give a quick insight on the use cases of the Chronicle project. I have grouped the wide range of use cases defined within the project activities to four main groups, four representative groups: EPC for people, operation, monitoring, optimization, and maintenance, renovation scenarios for enhanced building performance, and digital building logbooks. For the sake of the specific presentation, I will just focus on the EPC for people. So what the project visualizes is to deliver two user interfaces, one for the tenants, a more simplified and comprehensive version, and a more detailed one for professional users, and deliver information on operational rating of the building, actual consumption from the devices and the major loads available on site, and further enhanced with timely and actionable feedback for the end users. What has been observed so far is that giving general feedback that doesn't really reflect the usage behavior of the users within the building is actually not taken into account, and it doesn't really promote their let's say their behavior, their energy behavior optimization. So they don't really perceive efficiency if they just get general feedback. So what we aim here is to provide specific recommendations that will take that will allow the user to properly understand and properly understand how their usage actually reflects in the building energy performance and improve this behavior. So thank you for your attention. I am open to any further questions.
Thank you, Angelina. Thank you to all the speakers. Thank you for the very interesting and insightful presentations. We are always looking forward to more. Let's go for some questions that perhaps goes a little bit deeper in some of the topics. So let's begin for the last one with Angelina. Angelina, what are the barriers that the Chronicle project has so far identified as blocking points for the wide uptake of its solutions to residential buildings?
Okay, so at the moment, I mean, it was also, if I'm not mistaken, if I noted correctly, Gust's presentation also brought up the fact that bags can should be implemented and be standard, let's say, requirements for large buildings. For example, for the residentials over 70 kilowatts, in our project, we are looking into smaller buildings, for example, single family buildings or apartments or so on. So it is an issue. One of the issues is the cost. It's very difficult to implement such solutions requiring a full IoT deployment on site and still maintain the cost viable for smaller users. And at the moment, there is no framework either to implement that. But I would say the cost is probably at the moment the largest barrier in implementation.
Yeah, absolutely. And you name Gust. What are the main challenges of measuring building performance in the EU building stock?
Yes, thank you for the question. I think definitely, as mentioned by Angelina already, is that cost is a concern. But as mentioned before, to effectively collect data of actual building performance, we require some sort of monitoring and control devices in place. So if we don't have them, we don't have the actual real-time performance of the building. And we saw, as I mentioned, that there are steps being taken at the EU level now before there were requirements for large non-residential buildings, and hopefully after the current revision of the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, there will be requirements also for smaller non-residential buildings and also smaller residential buildings, not single-family homes yet, but multifamily apartment buildings as well, hopefully. Nevertheless, the biggest issue that we've seen in the last 3 years is the transposition of these measures at the member state level. I think this is one of the biggest issues. It is all well and good that we set requirements at the EU level, but if more is not done to support the implementation at the national level, we are losing out on the potential benefits of these technologies and the access to accurate building performance metrics that we all want to have access to. At the UBAC, we have tried ourselves to support member states in this regard by developing different guidelines and checklists to explain how these measures have to be implemented in practice, what sort of systems need to be in place, and we also actively engage with the stakeholders at both EU and national level to try to promote these tools. Nevertheless, we think the EU institutions should do more to support this implementation, because we see now 5 years after the last revision of the EPBD, the previous EPBD measures are still not implemented, even though the deadline for that was 2020. And in many member states, they're still struggling to implement any of these measures.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Ulrike, you have presented project calls and projects that have quite an interest in renovation. I believe that's the EU really wants to improve the renovation rates of our current building stock, for sure. As we are talking today about rating schemes, do you think it's a big asset, the rating schemes and the projects on rating schemes and on building performance, I mean, to improve the renovation rates of the European building stock?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have different projects addressing completely different things. So the ones that we have just heard are really still also dealing with technological things, feeding into policy. What we have more on our side are more policy implementation projects, but also projects, and that was mentioned also by you back, to have a better valorization of buildings. And I think this is also where we see the trend, and where we try to connect the financing world with the EPC and building world. These two worlds need to come together. And what we need, and that's what I said at the beginning, is an improved accuracy. I mean, it's nice if we have also other features that go beyond energy, but what we've seen also from all the tests that have been done here in Belgium, for example, that you have several auditors and they come with completely different results. This is going to shatter the trust of consumers. So what we need is accuracy, is reliability, and you, with these projects, you contribute to this with better technologies, with using digitalization and automation. But what we need from the other side, and that's also where I see LifeSat a lot, is that these findings are not just there, but that they're taken up by policymakers, by implementers. And yeah, in that sense, I absolutely trust that these projects can have a super great influence and impact. We just make sure that the results that you get don't just float around somewhere, but that they're being used. And this is also why we have these clusters. Because if you have a cluster, first of all, you can coordinate across projects, but you also have a bigger voice.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we jump to Andrei, following what Ulrike has just said. You present a very interesting kind of graphic where you put EPC at the center of this policy making. And do you think it will be wise to have operational rating as a must, besides asset rating, for building renovation and new buildings alike, to ensure buildings actually perform as intended, as a sort of continuous follow-up?
Thank you, Arantxa, for the question. So I'll first answer as an engineer. By education, I'm an engineer. I also work as a designer and contractor, and saw in practice how things actually work. So personally, I think yes. Then again, it's politics. So I think there might be certain conditions in which operational rating could be a must, especially if you think of highly energivore, if you want, buildings, or in certain areas where there is more interest to follow up to be sure that everything is going okay. Then in other buildings where it's I would say the situation is simpler, the systems are less complex, there might be exemptions. All in all, I would just want to emphasize that EPCs, with this EPBD recast, they are receiving this sort of role as being the, how should I put it, the overarching, I would say, the framework for building performance assessment. And some things I believe should be brought in by policy, so let's say a push. But then if this framework is enabled and we have a methodology to have operational rating, you can also have a market pool because they are already on the market today. I don't want to name any companies, but there are organizations that provide performance guarantees with the services that they provide. This would just mean that the EPBD would be the place that everything would be under the same framework. So the same methodology, everything would be harmonized, and it would, let's say, give the necessary speed to the market to bring these changes in the building sector, to arrive at this digitally transformed, zero emission, energy efficient, and so on, indoor healthy building built environment.
Really hope so. There is something that you all have mentioned, or you have mentioned in the background of your minds, that is the data collection. Quite an important topic. A question for Paris and Angelina, because I want you to talk about your own projects, so Smart Living EPC and Chronicle. Are they contributing to the improvement of the data collection and analysis techniques to enhance building performance? Angelina, for example. How about Chronicle?
So yes, we assume that it does actually contributes a lot. To be honest, my field of expertise is the IoT network establishment. So from this aspect, we are working towards establishing better communications and better data processing. So the best, the better the quality of the collected data, the better the accuracy and the accuracy of the simulation, and for more complete data data sets collected, it is easier to have a full overview of the building operations. But in addition, we are also trying to couple this with the BIM modeling of the system. At the moment, we understand that BIM modeling, especially for residential buildings, is not something very common, but we expect that in the future it will be a must for every new building or innovated building. So what we are trying to do, as I also mentioned in my presentation, is to fuse these building information models with actually the sensorial network on site and couple them so we can treat them as one throughout our performance assessment and simulation methodology.
Paris, about Smart Living EPC.
Yes, I will focus on another, let's say, topic on the quality of data, and that is on the significance of including pilots in our projects. And actually, from previous projects, but also from Smart Living EPC, the lessons learned by implementing our, let's say, solutions in pilot buildings are very strong. And in this sense, we do have issues with interoperability of data. So we do have issues of different manufacturers, of different protocols that are used, and interoperability is one of the main, let's say, obstacles that we face in managing data. And that is one integral part, at least in our project, is the data curation. So to make sure that we have the data in the required format in order to be processed by the tools that we develop. So these are, let's say, obstacles that we find in our pilots, and we also anticipate that these will be issues that we will also face in the market, in the community, when we will apply our solutions. We'll have different types of protocols, different types of data. So interoperability in that sense is a major issue. And yes, we do have activities in Smart Living EPC that provide the answers for curing the data and for having the data in an appropriate format so that they can be post-processed towards delivering the information that we wish to deliver from Smart Living EPC to the building users and the assessors.
Thank you so much, Paris. And last questions, let's involve our audience. And you have largely demonstrated that you're very participatory projects. You have great dissemination through build up, through your reports, through everything, but also you have created a cluster. So you are all continuously kind of impacting one in another and exchanging. How can the webinar attendees and the interested stakeholders dynamically partake in and boost the endeavors of Smart Living EPC and Chronicle? Paris, Angelina, Gust, and Andrei, what do you propose our audience that they can do to be participants?
So I can just give a few words on that, and then I will give the floor to Andrei, because he was actually he inspired the cluster of the Next Gen EPC project.
Absolutely.
We've seen many things, many results from the cluster, and actually what concerns the projects that are related to EPC, this could be, let's say, paradigm, a good practice, how the projects can cluster and work together. So I assume that Andrei will be much more specific on how the cluster will be exposed in the following period, and how the audience could be able to, let's say, contact the projects. I will just finish with one reference, the fact that we are currently discussing operational rating. And actually, the topic of this workshop was the operational rating, more or less resulted from a joint workshop that we had in Sustainable Places in 22. In EMIS, it was September 22, where the topic was actually operational rating. And where we brainstormed, we interacted, that is the projects of the Next Gen EPC cluster. And we were able to, let's say, deliver a framework which was then promoted by the EPC to send for a new standard on operational rating. So this is just an example of how this can work. But I would give the floor to Andrei, who is actually leading this initiative.
Thank you, Arantxa, for this question, and Paris for handing over. Indeed, just to complement what Paris just said, we need to differentiate. So we have activities within the cluster where the projects, the partners in the project are collaborating, so to avoid reinventing the wheel and actually taking things further as opposed to not collaborating. But then, of course, the interaction with the wider stakeholder community and yeah, the reality basically, be it at policy level or in the market, that's something that we try to have a sort of single entry. So this is something that we are working on, to have a single entry point to the cluster results, all the projects in the cluster. And hopefully we will put that in practice soon, because then you would have a single entry point, and then you could go, you would be directed in further depth within the results of the various projects. So it's upcoming, but as I said, just follow us on social media. All of us are quite active there, and you will see when this becomes reality. Thank you.
We have just also shared in the chat the links to Chronicle and Smart Living EPC. So, but you have everything in Build Up, and I hope Build Up is also the platform, as always, to help you on that, Andrei. So a big thank you to the speakers and also to the audience for attending today's webinar. A reminder that you will be able to find the recording of today's session on the Build Up portal and our YouTube channel in the coming days, together with the presentation slides. We have many webinars planned for the second half of 2023, so keep an eye on the Build Up calendar and our social media for updates on this. We wish you all a very pleasant end to your week. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.